Good morning. I'd like to start just by talking about what our crews have been working on since the storm happened last night. We've had people that were on call throughout the night, on call at all hours, making sure that we're coordinating closely with the police department, with OPBD, and making sure that roadways are clear to the best extent practicable. We want to make sure that all the roadways are safe. We want to make sure they're all passable, and so we've been working at all hours just to make sure that that happens. We will continue to work in that fashion. We are working with about 30 crews currently that are going through the streets. Our first priority is the passability of the streets, and so we will be working over the next several days just to make sure that all the streets in Omaha remain passable and open and safe for the public to use. We do anticipate, as the mayor mentioned, that at some point in time, likely at the start of next week, we will come through and do a curbside pickup for tree limbs that are down, but our first priority through the rest of this week and through the weekend will remain passability and openness of the streets. So we would ask that people just be cognizant of the fact that potentially Monday we could start coming out and picking up limbs at curbside, and so there's some time there for people to get those out to the curb and make sure that they're available for our crews to start picking up. We do anticipate that operation to take a significant amount of time. There's a very, very large amount of debris that's down. We're working through 5,000 lane miles of streets to make sure those are open and passable. We expect the pickup that starts early next week to last somewhere in the 2 to 3 week range, and so we would obviously ask that if people have the means, if citizens have the means and the ability to get limbs and trees to the dump sites that are open, we would certainly appreciate that happening. Otherwise, we will continue to process until everything's picked up over the next several weeks. One of the issues, obviously, that came up this morning, we've had a number of outages with our traffic signals. Traffic signals run on power, and so we're waiting for the full restoration of power. As of this morning, I know about 10% of our system was still completely black. The way that works is if we have a power outage at a signal, the signal will go dark. That should be treated as a four-way stop if there are no lights there. Once the power is restored to the signal will go into what's called flash mode, where you'll see either a red or a yellow flashing light. Again, those are treated as four-way stops to make sure that that people aren't having crashes in the intersections. At that point in time, once the power comes back, our crews come out to get those signals reset, get the timing reset on them, and so that can take a significant amount of time. We did have some signal poles that were also damaged, and so we have crews working on those. But we are looking to restore all of that functionality to the system as soon as possible, and work to make sure that our transportation system remains passable and safe.
Fire away, Austin.
Usually, when you put limbs out for the city to pick up, you have to have the 4-foot lengths and tie it up. Do you have to do that this time as well?
Yeah, so if, Jim was talking about potentially putting them in a trash can. If that goes through the yard waste service or the trash service, they need to be cut up. The street maintenance pickup that's going to come in, they don't require them to be cut up for that. We're going to have large, heavy equipment. We're going to have people with chainsaws. So we're moving that into large dump trucks and getting it out to our own dump sites. And so for what the public works crews come through on the street side, the transportation side, those don't have to be cut up really fine. But anything, again, as Jim mentioned, that goes into a trash can does have to be cut up 3 inch or less diameter and cut to short lengths.
Do you want, if there's a large 12-foot, tree branch, do you want them at least kind of cut up to make it easier for you guys?
That would be helpful. I mean, the more something's cut up before we get there, obviously the less work and the faster we can process that work. So that's certainly helpful. I understand there's limitations on means and ability for people to do that. So if you can, I would encourage it. If not, we'll come through and pick that up.
How many times are you going to pass through the neighborhoods to pick up the tree debris?
We plan to come through one time. And so, again, we're really early right now to get an assessment on what everything looks like as far as the volume of that debris is. And so, we'll stay flexible and we'll do what we need to do at the end of the day. The best operation for us is if we can systematically go through each one of our residential areas. And I would just want to highlight also, our maintenance crews are divided into 5 distinct district yards. They're all sized proportionally with the same number of streets, the same number of operators per street, and so we have equal distribution of forces citywide. And so what we'll do is we have what we call areas, and each one's about 25 lane miles. It's similar to how we do a snow operation. We'll systematically go one by one and clear those. It's a 2-staged operation or a phased operation, where the first It's making sure those streets are clear, making sure the streets are passable. We will track that internally with a web map. I think we're looking at potentially having that available to the public. We've got to do some more work on that. But once we're finished making sure that all the streets are clear and passable, we will come back with the pickup operation at the curbside. Again, we plan to track that internally with web maps. Hopefully we can share that with the public as well.
Can people in the neighborhoods help out by moving their cars if they can?
That's a good question. I think it all depends on location of the pile. Obviously, if you've got a car that's near a pile and a piece of equipment can't get to it, then sure. I mean, it's similar to keeping your car away from a fire hydrant. We need to have room to work. We need to have the ability to do that. So if people have the ability and the space to take their cars off of the streets, that's helpful.
Austin, how many streets, if you know, were completely closed by limbs across them, and how many are trees?
Yeah, I don't have that number.
More than the two I saw?
Yeah, I don't have that number. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it's more than the
Are
two.
there still some now?
Yes.
The mayor mentioned that West Omaha and Central Omaha were the most impacted. Where are you guys focusing your efforts for street accessibility right now?
We are divided into 5 distinct maintenance districts that all have their own responsibilities, and so our crews are spread evenly citywide.
And you mentioned 30 crews. What is that for, like, boots on the ground?
Yeah, so some of those crews are equipment crews, and some of those are ground crews. So your ground crew is going to consist of people with loaders, skid steers, chainsaws. That's kind of our ground crews, and then our haul crews they're the people driving the dump trucks back and forth. So we've got the ground crews that do all the cut up and loading, and then the other crews that are hauling back and forth to the dump sites.
Do you have like a number of employees that are out working?
It would be around 150.
For Dodge Street, when I came in, I came to the west side. There's almost 3 head-ons for that middle lane at 3rd. What's kind of the traffic flow with that during the day? Because without the traffic lights, there's no directional arrows.
Yeah, obviously the signals are really important to the proper operation, and for the reversible lane on Dodge, I would just encourage avoiding the center reversible lane.
I've heard a couple of times that people have said up here that this has got more damage than any storm in Omaha history. I'm old enough to remember 1975. Does that include the tornado that blew through the middle of Omaha in 1975? Convention 21.
We're talking about outages.
Yeah.
We were talking about OPPD was
Outages?
talking
Okay.
about their outages.
Okay, just wanted to make
This is
sure.
more outages than that
The
they have
population
seen.
is also
Right,
big,
right.
too. Okay.
And I wanted to reemphasize what Austin said too, because this question comes up a lot. We are not giving preferential treatment to any part of Omaha. Public Works has 5 districts. They're equally distributed, and they are addressing each district equally. Nobody gets preferential treatment. And keep in mind too, we have 5,000 lane miles of road in Omaha. So our first priority is to get the streets clear, and that's going to take a little while. But I was down in South Omaha last evening when the storm hit, and I saw city trucks out already. The storm had just passed, and so they're out there working. Please be patient, because it was hit really badly citywide. Like I said, it looks like Central and West Omaha had the worst, but still everyone did. South Omaha, North Omaha, it was citywide. We got a direct hit.
As far as some of the trees on, like, some of the right-of-ways, like on Harrison, some of the trees that sit, I don't know if it's like on the property, but you have the fences that went in there. Is that the property owner's thing to try to clean up that, or is that the city on the north side of Harrison?
Yeah, so the city's responsibility in something like this is when a tree falls and it blocks, from a transportation standpoint, if you're blocking transportation, either a sidewalk or a street, we want to make sure that gets cleared.
Right.
So as far as the responsibility, the city code defines a number of responsibilities. We don't split hairs on that standpoint when we're out clearing for a storm. We want to make sure transportation is restored, and that's sidewalks and streets. And so we will come and clear those if they're blocking a transportation infrastructure.
But if
Public right-of-way is our responsibility.
yeah, so they're not. So if the tree's on the other side of the fence, then all those trees are going to be, that's going to be your job to come back.
We won't go onto private property
Right.
for trees, which is why we ask for curbside pickup, because we want the trees brought to the right of way. But our crews won't go onto private property. We won't trespass to pick up trees.
How does the storm cleanup this time around compared to the other storms that we've had this year?
The other ones are more isolated, and so this is more of a citywide, widespread event. And so, I guess from that standpoint, we're basically asking everything of all of our resources all at once. And so we're dispersing through the entire city, and we're systematically working through it. Where the other ones are more isolated, and we could send resources to an area or kind of focus on a specific area. That's the primary difference.
Gotcha. And then do you have a timeline? I know like OPPD said maybe 7 to 8 days based off the past. Do you have a timeline?
Yeah, and this is obviously going to be a little bit dynamic, but currently we think that the operation, the first phase where we go through and clear out all the streets, is probably going to take us to the first part of next week. When we go to do the curbside pickup, we expect that should probably take about 2 to 3 weeks.
Will each of the neighborhoods know when, hey, we're going to be in your neighborhood by this day? Will they know, or is that something that you guys will?
We don't have any kind of a schedule for that. What we'll do is we'll disperse those crews, and it's kind of going to be at the discretion of the operators to go and find those areas. We'll assign those out obviously through our supervisory staff, and we're going to track those internally on a web map. Again, we don't do any kind of preferential treatment towards one or another. It's fairly random, but I would again just emphasize that for the curbside pickup, the best option that homeowners would have is to make sure that that's ready by Monday, so that when we do start that operation, it's out there and you don't get missed.
Did you say contractors are helping crews as well?
From our standpoint, I don't have any contractors. I know OPPD has some other contract help that's in, but from a public works standpoint, we don't have contractors at this time.
Been safe. I mean, that's a lot of workers out there with a lot of big tree debris.
Yeah,
traffic.
Our staff has been safe. We have good work zone practices for traffic. Obviously, we're going to be using a lot of chainsaws over the next few weeks, and so that's something we want to make sure everybody's really safe at as well. Those injuries can be fairly severe, so we want to make sure that everybody's staying safe. Hydration's huge for our crews. There's a number of different issues that we're going to be facing with heat and just debris and trees and traffic. So we, obviously that's what we do every day. And so to this point, everyone has stayed safe.